Hi everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm going to try to make this presentation interesting, provocative, and you'll learn something. Okay, first of all, Hakarat Tov to Barbara Shrem and your entire organization and her committee for caring enough to do something. Today you have to be one of those who is emor ma'at v'aseh harbe, do little, rather speak little and do much, and Barbara's always there doing. So Barbara, Hashem should give you the health and strength ad ma'at v'asim shana to continue helping Klal Yisrael. Okay, alrighty. Maybe just a little background about myself. I was trained as a foot surgeon, podiatrist. I was a Talmud of Rabbi Miller since I was 12. I learned quite a bit from him on marital relations, on human relations and dating. I spent many years as a doctor, 1 to 8, 9 to 12, teaching in yeshivas in Brooklyn, where many of the boys were coming home from Israel asking me questions about this girl, that girl, and I have to say I was clueless on the subject about 30 years ago, but I quickly got up to speed and I started reading every article and became quite acquainted with dating. Found myself under hundreds and hundreds of chuppahs. I moved to Miami Beach in 2001 in order to continue my work, which I thought was to be a physician, but that's not what Hashem had in mind for me, though I did practice there. But I was very involved in Kiruv on the campus of the University of Miami. I taught for 7 years for Eshet Torah or Sameach. Was involved. My wife and I hosted hundreds, if not thousands, of people in our homes. I came back here because of one reason: shidduchim for my daughters. I felt that New York had better quality, and one day I used to give a class called Wednesday Night Dating with Dr. Jack in a yeshiva near Torah College, and it was a dinner with a lecture. And one person who was a friend of mine, Maimon Elbaz, took a video camera, he put it up, and he then transferred it on to Torah Anytime, and then I find myself with emails from all over the world. I had no idea that all those years, the lectures that I was giving was something that I myself took an interest in, but no one gave toolbox lectures on dating. This is how it's done. This is what's going on. And Baruch Hashem, people took quite well to it, and then that became a second career of becoming a dating coach and helping people get married and helping my clients find people and being involved in many shidduchim across the spectrum. Hasidish, Litvak, Hamish, you name it, Sephardic. So, because I'm involved in so many of these things, let me tell you what I'm seeing and what can we learn from it. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is the more you do what you're doing, the more you'll get the same results. As Einstein famously said, insanity is doing it the same way again and again, expecting a different result. So we're going to examine how we're going about dating and what can we introduce into our repertoire to make it more successful. So we need a strategy. That's important. All right. We're going to do some hashkafa-based things in order to get into the right mindset, and then we'll do some technical dating, knowledge. Teach yourself to see the rose, not the thorn. As a person now is dating in his older years or her older years, it's quite simple to give up, to say no, there's no chance, there's no shot. Even though that the numbers sometimes statistically seem to be against us, but almost all the time we hear of wonderful stories of people getting a second or third chance. I'll tell you an interesting story that I was contacted by a fellow from LA. He calls himself a Torah Vadas runaway. He's now 63 years old. He had already been divorced 3 times. So he tells me, we had an interesting conversation. He says to me, what's the difference between me and people who live together and are never married? I said, the big difference is a ketuvah involved. You know what I'm saying? Just to live together is not. Anyway, we sort of like skirmished on proper hashkafa, and he dropped out of sight. A month ago, he sends me an email. He got married his 4th time. And he got married to a nice girl. The point is, it can happen. I see it all the time. It's just a matter of proper mindset. And I'll try to put you into that proper mindset. So here's my takeaway for tonight's lecture. Let's begin again now. This is the title of a book that Zelik Pliskin published. And that's a very appropriate way to think. How can we begin again now? Okay, here we go. Give me a second. In 1964, Rabbi Dessler, from the famous book Michtav Milyahu, wrote a poem, and Zelik Pliskin quotes it. And this is what he wrote. The past is only memories, the future is but only hope. Focus on the present in your life, for that is where your life really is, and it may contain some tests. Focus on the present. Okay, so what's going on out there today? We live in a very visual world. We have cell phones, as you see, and all I have to do is go on 5 or 6 or 7 dating sites, and thousands of resumes are at my fingertips. Which leads us to this problem called TMC. Maybe not for the older crowd, but it's called too much choice. People at this discretion have thousands of pictures that they can look at, dating resumes, etc. And unfortunately, the concept of physical attraction gets more than its expected or justified share of an analysis. It shouldn't be so much. Now I looked into this a little bit, and you're familiar with the great author John Gray, Men Are for the Moon and Women Are from Venus. He writes the following. Here's a goy, and he was a psychiatrist to the stars. Physical chemistry alone is very short-lived. A man can easily be turned on by a woman who promises gratification without any strings. I was amazed as a counselor and a therapist in Hollywood to discover a striking pattern. Quite often women who were extremely attractive and looked like models and movie stars, and would all share the same complaint to me. Their husbands were not attracted to them. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't imagine how any available man would not be attracted to these women, but it was true. I started thinking about it and I came to the answer. These women were pursued by men who were primarily attracted to them physically, but never got to know them. And as a result, these marriages were doomed before they started. And what happened, it wasn't just the men that were the guilty parties here. Both partners were responsible, putting too much emphasis on the physical aspect of the relationship and didn't create the opportunity to know and love each other, to discover if they were soulmates. And unfortunately, today I'm involved in this all the time. I set people up a lot. Within one date, 2 dates, not my look. Give it a shot. Did you get to know her? Did you ask any questions? And I'll get into that a little later, how critical it is to be able to ask the proper questions. And I'll show you something that I put together called a PDF of 100 questions you can ask while you're dating. Questions are critical. Communication is critical. Because when you communicate effectively, you can pierce a wall and open a window to the person's soul. And as a result, then you can, have better success. When physical chemistry is not backed up by chemistry of the mind, the heart, and the soul, that love cannot last. Once the pleasures of the body are experienced without corresponding passions of the mind, physical chemistry will dissipate. Classic story. I'm doing a video yesterday, a video consultation to a 40-year-old man in LA. He's dating a nice girl, modern Orthodox, and she checks off. I went through the whole questionnaire with him and asking him questions. He's trying to determine if it's the right girl. He's getting ready to get engaged in 2 weeks. So he says to me, you know what? My mother loves her. Everything about her lines up. Even I told him, from what I hear, this one is a go. Maybe I can get a hotter girl 2 weeks before he wants to get engaged. I'm not sure, I'm not feeling stars about it. And I want to show you how you apply the John Gray concept. When physical chemistry is not backed up by chemistry in the mind, I said to him very straight out, I'm going to change your name. Joey, have you slept with her? Yes. I said, there you go. You took a credit on the cheesecake before buying. And that's the problem. That's the problem. When you don't develop the spiritual, the soul relationship, the physical starts to dissipate. So that's what happens. Okay, so now let's ask the question. Or rather, let's back up with a story and then ask a question. Gila Mandelson is one of the great dating coaches of the world. Gila Mandelson is a person who's written many, many books on reserving touch, or shmirat nigah, shmiras nigah, till after you get married. She was not always frum. As a matter of fact, she wasn't frum. And she went to Eretz Yisrael because she was sponsored to go, something like a Project Birthright. And there someone took her to a wedding, of a frum wedding. And there she is in her jeans. And someone whispers to her and says, they've never touched. So, no, you're crazy. Can't possibly be. How could be? Man and woman not touching. That provoked her interest or her curiosity into discovering her heritage, her Jewish heritage, which would lead her into becoming a Baalat Shuvah, and then dating someone who's going to Esha Torah and planning to learn full time. Now, as you know, if you're a person who has a Rebbe or a Rav, which is very good, before you get married, you want to bring the Kala to be, the prospective Kala, to your Rebbe, so you can check her out. So it was time for her to go with her fiancé to be Avram, to meet Rabbi Noah Weinberg. Okay. So she says, my fiancé brings me into the office of the dean, Rosh Yeshiva, an imposing looking rabbinical figure sitting behind a desk with a huge smile. So Gila, how are you? And asks her a few questions about life, what college she attends, what major she's studying. So tell me, Gila, what's your definition of love? And she's thinking to herself, I'm doing so well with the rabbi, so I took a crack at it. I was doing very well with him. She says, Rabbi, love is the feeling you have when you feel like you have that feeling. And she says to herself, boy, did I blow it. Here I am about to get married, and I can't even define what love is. And she said, it can't possibly be. It has to be definable, because if you can't define it, you can't pursue it. And she says to herself, love is probably the most misunderstood word in the world. Some magazines in America say it's not definable, and I say that's ridiculous, because love can't be just a feeling. If love is based on a feeling, then that could lead you to a lousy human being, a grown-up baby, an abuser, or someone just totally wrong for you. And even if it feels good to be with that person, well, feelings come and feelings go. So you can't base that on a feeling. So she started thinking, and she said, you know what? I came to my own conclusion. Before losing your head, you need to evaluate the person's personality, their character, and their values. And she came to her own conclusions. Is he or she caring? Is he or she loyal? Is he or she patient? Is he or she responsible? Is he or she honest? Willing to work things out? Will they be there for you and have your back? It reminds me of a great story called The Diamond. Years ago in Israel, a couple got married around Lag BaOmer time. The boy's grandmother had a minhag, a custom, that she was well-to-do, so she would go to the prospective kala that's coming into her family, knock on her door, and present her with a diamond ring. And this girl's Zahava was no exception. There was a knock on the door, it was grandma or the savta. She presented her with a beautiful box, she opens it up, and a ring that was even nicer than the ring that the husband or the grandson gave her. Okay, time for the wedding. So she goes to the wedding, and she didn't want to, bother the grandma, but the ring was a little loose. So she decided to put a wedding band in front of the ring itself. And danced the night away, everything was fantastic. Sheva Brachas, Shabbos Sheva Brachas, was in Netanya by his mother's side. Okay, they had gone to shul, and there was a kiddush after. Now they're getting ready, congregating in the mother-in-law's house, his mother's house, getting ready for lunch. When suddenly his mother says, Zahava, where's your ring? She looks at her finger and she says, I don't know. Maybe I took it off to wash for Netilas Yadayim yesterday in my house before I came here. They live in Yerushalayim. Anyway, the mother-in-law really lost herself. She got so perturbed, she decided to go to the room where they were in Aliyah, like a second floor, and she rummaged through all of her private lingerie, making her so embarrassed, deadly embarrassed. And she says, do you realize that that's a $10,000 ring? Now it's becoming very icy between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. So Shabbos, it's very tense. She says to her husband, Zevi, do me a favor, right after Shabbos, we're going to make Havdalah, you're going to run back to the apartment, and you go check, maybe I left the ring by the sink. So they made Havdalah after Shabbos. He zips back to Yerushalayim from Netanya, about a 45-minute ride. He looks everywhere, he calls her up, he says, Hava, no ring. And from that day on, things were pretty frigid between Zahava and her mother-in-law. In the middle of the summer, Zevi's father says, you know what, we can't let this go on. There's no communication between Zevi's wife and us. So he decided to host everyone for lunch. And he bought the new couple a beautiful vase. And they had a fantastic lunch, things are rolling. Now it's time to see them off. The father gives the vase to his wife. He says, present it to Zahava. Listen to what the mother-in-law does. Not a brilliant move. She takes the vase and she says, she's about to give it to Zahava. He says, on second chance, she says, you know what? Let me give it to Zevi. You know what you did with the ring? That was World War III. All-out explosion. She says, I'm never coming back here again. It's over. You and I are never communicating. Done. A month or two goes by, and now it's time for Rosh Hashanah. So he goes to the closet, Zevi. It's time to pull out the bekasha and put on the bekasha to go in the shul. And he's putting it on, and he says to his wife, you know what? You're such a great cook, honey. I can barely even close the buttons. As he's getting ready to close the buttons, he feels a little lump over here. He puts his hand in the inside pocket, and out comes the ring. And the first thing she does is she calls her mother-in-law and says, you thought I was the shlemazel? It's your son, not me. And from that day on, he was the butt of all her jokes. Zevi, you know what? I need you to take the kids to the park. But should I get you a Brinks security guard so you don't lose them? Zevi, I need you to go to make a deposit at the bank, but I don't lose the money. And he wouldn't say a word. And years went on. They had a few children. The Savta that had given the ring was in Olam HaEmes at this point. She passed on. And you know how women are. They get a hankering for new jewelry. She was one day walking by the jeweler that used to sell all the jewelry to her husband's grandma. She walked in there. She says, you know what? You remember Mrs. Goldstein, my husband's grandma? Sure. Sold her many items, many pieces. And she bought me a piece from you. And he says to him, I want to trade up for something else. So he takes the ring from her. He looks at it, examines it. He goes, must be worth $18,000. Gorgeous piece, nice stone. But there's only one problem. I know my merchandise. I didn't sell this ring. What do you mean? She only shopped by you. I'm telling you, lady, I didn't sell this ring. Go home, get the GIA certificate, look for the receipt and come back to me. Okay, so she goes home. She opens the kasefet, the safe that they have in their bedroom. She pulls out the GIA certificate. She looks for the certificate. She turns white as a ghost. And she waits for Zevi to come home. They're having dinner. She tells him, you know, Zevi, I decided to go to the jeweler that grandma used to go to, get bored of my jewelry. And I want to trade up. Sure, whatever you want. So what did he tell you? He said that it appreciated another $8,000 for the amount that grandma paid for it. But there's one problem, Zevi. We got married in May, right after Lag BaOmer. And when he asked me to bring him the receipt, it says September. That makes no sense. And then I did my own cheshbon, she says. I figured it out. You went ahead and bought me a new ring because I wasn't speaking to your mother. And all those years that I wondered, how come you were never home Monday and Wednesday night? I came to my conclusions. You probably took a second job to pay for that ring. So I wonder, Zevi, who's the diamond? You or the ring? And that's what we're looking for. These are the values that we'd like to search for. So again, so what did Rav Noah Weinberg tell her? What's love? She says, here's the Rosh Hashiva's definition of love. Love is the attachment that results from deeply appreciating someone else's deeds or thoughts in their goodness. That person has innate goodness in their thoughts, in their actions. That's what we're looking for. Such a love doesn't expire quickly. Such a love, when it's put to a test, can handle the test. And then she says she went out to become a therapist. I once met the perfect couple, Larry and Linda, and they were on the same page in virtually everything. Travel, politics, diet, the environment. They agreed on it all. You never saw two people so happily, made for each other. They seemed enviable. And guess what? Larry and Linda are now divorced. What happened? Despite their amazing compatibility, why didn't their love make it? Why didn't their love last? Why did the marriage deteriorate? Because neither Larry or Linda possess the concept of striving to improve yourself. And this is something that's critical. When you're dating someone, get into his kishkiz or her kishkiz about how they're improving themselves. Are they growing as human beings? Are they volunteering? Do they make time to study Torah? Does the guy go to minyan frequently or infrequently? Where's Yiddishkeit in their life? Where's growth in their life? And now you're on the right path to finding someone that's going to care about the real you. That's what's important. So love means appreciating someone else's goodness. The famous question, should I settle? Examine your expectations. Are they realistic or unrealistic? You may want someone great looking, but maybe you're yourself a little bit overweight. Or perhaps even though you're smart, you're destined for someone who has normal intelligence, but doesn't. Sometimes I get people, because they're intelligent, want super intelligent partners. Not dafka, doesn't have to work out that way. So you have to ask yourself, can I reassess what I'm looking for? Because sometimes people don't reassess and hold on to that same list, that mental list for 5, 10, 15 years. But you're not who you used to be since 10, 15 years ago. Don't keep waiting thinking that someone better will come along. There are people who say, okay, you know what, this one is good, but maybe I could do better. That's the product of the Yetzer Hara. And that's important. Let's get realistic about our expectations. Think and focus on the bigger picture. Having a family and being able to have children, things like that. That's really where it's at today. Okay. So what are some of the things we should be careful for? Mistakes that we don't want to make. Number one, you pick the wrong person because you expect the person to change after you're married. Huge mistake. I sat with a girl yesterday who came to see me from Deal. 22 years old, 7-month marriage. Unfortunately, was given bad advice by a shadchan. He had horrible communication capabilities. And she kept telling her after 12, 14, 15 years, you'll see he'll change. You'll see he'll change. Wrong. Big time wrong. Rabbi Pian was one of the great mashkichim of the last century. Used to lecture on this all the time. Don't think about what was or what will be. What's he or she like now? What are they like now? That's very important. And this girl missed that, thinking that this guy's going to change. She went into a very lonely existence. Number two, you picked the wrong person. Again, we don't have to belabor this because you focus more on physical chemistry than on character. While chemistry ignites the fire, but character is what keeps it going for years and decades. Rather, here are some qualities you want to keep an eye out. Humility, kindness, responsibility. And does he like himself? Does she like herself? The next one, you choose the wrong person because you don't share common life goals. That's important to check out. How many times have I sat with divorced people who said to me, we just went in 2 different directions once we got married? So for that, I need to give you an idea. What does that mean? Make sure you develop a deep level of connection when you're dating. Because if you don't, after marriage, the two of you either grow together or grow apart. So now, while you're single, figure out, who am I? What am I living for? What do I want? What do I need to make me happy? Which means you need to create a top 10 list. That becomes your GPS. I do that for people. I'll do that for anyone here who wants my help. That becomes your GPS. You don't even need to make all 10. 6 out of 10 in physical attraction, it works all the time. Now you have a GPS of what to go by. So you don't make mistakes. Every time you date, you look at your index card to see, how am I doing in my GPS? You picked the wrong person because you don't feel emotionally safe. This basically deals with either two things. Someone who you feel physically threatened from, or someone who's controlling what you say. And you don't feel comfortable saying what's on your mind when you're dating. There's a big difference between controlling and making suggestions. Making suggestions is appropriate. Controlling is inappropriate. What's the difference? A suggestion is made for your benefit. A controlling statement is made for his or her benefit. So be careful. Next, you pick the wrong person because you don't put everything on the table. Anything that's bothering you about the relationship should be discussed while you're in that relationship. Because bringing up the uncomfortable stuff is the only way to determine, can I get along with you? Can I negotiate with you? If you think about it, it's really a business, and we're two entities that are in partnership together. As Lori Gottlieb likes to say, marriage is a not-for-profit business. If you think about it. So can we get along? Can we negotiate? Can we find compromises that work for both of us? When I hear that there's a situation going on in a relationship and it's going a while, I'm actually happy. I don't want it to go smooth all the way. I want to see how they deal with a hiccup or a bump. And if they work it out, bam, I'm happy. That's good. Okay. Now, you picked the wrong person because that person is involved in a triangle. I had this happen last week. A girl came to see me who was divorced. Everything had to be run by his mother. Everything. By his mother. As a matter of fact, I had this happen to me maybe right before Corona. A Hamish girl came to me, same story. 3-week marriage. The night of the wedding, at the hotel, he's on the phone with his mother for 2 hours. Didn't last too long. Okay, now, alrighty. So since I was the Talmud of Victor Miller, I thought I would run through a couple of his 10 commandments of dating and marriage. Number 1, be realistic. I think we hit that point. Not to have your head in the clouds. Number 2, things are going to happen in life. Get ready for that. Number 3, make peace as soon as possible. Because a fight is like a breach in a dam. If you don't deal with it right away, then the hole gets bigger and bigger. Next, I think is critical. Be loyal to each other. And this one is so important. I mean, it can be taken to extremes, but don't take mean words seriously. That's important. I mean, unless the person is pathological. And let's move on to something else. Give me a second. And then I'll open it up for questions. Look for someone who's going to encourage you. That's critical. Because if you have someone that encourages you, there are going to be times in life that you need nurturing. Can the person nurture you? Can they encourage you? Also, I think this is very important, and he brings it out too, Rabbi Miller. He always taught us to have a Rebbe or a mentor. When there's a problem, who do you run to? A girl came to me from the 5 towns. He married someone who had gone to the Mir Yeshiva, who had a good reputation as a learner. They came back and set their life up in the 5 towns. And she said, I thought he'd be dedicated to some learning in the morning, followed by work. And a 2-hour Seder became a 1-hour Seder, became a half-hour Seder, became 15 minutes, became no more minyan, became B'nai bedroom. That's it. And she thought that the marriage was going to fall apart. And I said to her, nothing doing. Does he have a Rebbe? Go talk to his Rebbe. And she did, and he solved it. Because it's important that the couple have someone in their life that they can turn to. If they don't, then no one can tell him what to do, and no one can tell her what to do. But if they can submit themselves to a person of authority, now that's important. Many times, numerous times, things could have been worked out. But there was no one to turn to, or they were embarrassed to go to someone until they got like a snowball, and too big and too late. That's important. Okay, I want to just see if I can find my, in a second. I want to find my my PDF. Give me a second. See if I have it here. Oh, no, I found it. Okay, I know what I want. I got it. Okay. Now, Some of the questions that we can ask on dating to get to know the person. What are you proud of as an accomplishment in life? How do you feel about being Jewish today? You know, we're always in the news. Want to know about his or her take on that. What are your goals of the next 3 to 5 years? What does it take to make you happy in life? Again, someone called me up 2 days ago, and he was going out with a girl. She had to point out the fact that her shoes were $1,000 shoes. And her belt was XYZ, and this was XYZ. Obviously, he wasn't into that. He was looking for more ideal. He was more of an idealistic guy. You want to wear nice shoes? Nothing wrong with that. But you don't have to go out of the way to explain and to tell the person how much they cost. Okay, now, how have you grown in the past 5 years? Again, that lets me know that you as a person are not just static. You're moving forward, and that's critical. Tell me, who are your friends? I want to know that. Another one of the red flags that I saw in this girl who came to see me yesterday that was married for 7 months. He refused to let her meet any of his friends. Huge red flag. She didn't pick up on it because the shadchan told her it's okay, it's normal. I have to have a little talk with that shadchan.
What was the red flag?
He refused to allow her to meet any of his friends when they were dating. And one of the things you want to know is you'd like to know their social network. You know what they say? Show me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. Where do they hang out? Where do they socialize? What do you look for in a friend is a question that I would ask someone on a date. What quality, dependability, integrity, kind, compassionate, he or she will be there for you, generous. Do you enjoy your job? And let's say it's a guy with a girl. Do you feel that you'll have the time to be able to take care of the house, your husband, your children? I'm telling you, I can give you a case for everything. I'm on the phone with another case from LA. It was 2 days ago. And he said, I was going out with a girl, everything lined up. I was dating her. He's a high 30s guy. She was also 32, 33. He's a lawyer. She's a dentist. And she leaves the house at 8 in the morning and gets home around 7 o'clock at night. So he says to her, you know, they're dating for a while. I don't know why this question took such a long time to ask. And he says, I'm sure you're going to adjust your hours if and when we get married. No, I like what I do. You're going to come home at 8 o'clock every night? Where's the spot? Where's the place for kids? For a husband? So bam, she's out. So that's important. You have to check into some of these things. When you're feeling down, what do you do to raise your spirits? That's important. A, I want to make sure I'm not marrying someone who is in depression. And 2, I want to know how you deal with life. Do you listen to music, go for a run, go do a workout? I want to know how you deal with life. Right? Do you do chesed? To me, that's critical. It's a very important question. It's not a must, but it's taking your cue from the first shidduch in the history of the world. When Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, what was he looking for? Not that she had a PhD. He was looking for a girl who did chesed. And that's the deal he made with Hashem. The girl who gives me water to drink and gives my camels water to drink is the one. So if you see volunteer work, if you see helping a local synagogue, if you see the girl running next door because the family has 10 kids and she's helping bathe some of the kids, if you see helping, I don't care if you sweep the floors of the shul and help make the tuna fish for shalosh shudas. That's chesed. That means you think beyond yourself. And I like that. And we should be looking for that. What's your Shabbos table like? And more importantly, how would you like your Shabbos table to look in the future? Will there be guests? Will you have friends over? Will there be singing? Very important. By the way, this is how you peel layers off the people, layer by layer. This is how you make a connection. And the connection is the kesher. That's the key to great dating. Being a very good communicator and learning how to ask solid, wise questions is the way to go. Do you find yourself getting angry often? I don't want to be married to an angry person. Kaas is Gehenna, right? Are you close to your family? Where's your favorite vacation? Do you like to travel? Who's your favorite music? Things like that. Anyway, by the way, anyone wants this, I'll gladly send it to you. By the way, my phone number is, you could take it, 305, or we'll send this around even easier. Here's my business card, send them around, and just call me, text me, and I'll send you the PDF, or if you need an appointment with me to help in dating, it's fine. Just let me know. I'll give you my number, 305-206-1916. 305-206-1916. So I could send you the PDF, or if you want to make an appointment with me on dating or getting matched up, I'm happy to do that for you. It's not a problem. Okay. And then last but not least, the biggest question I always get, one of the big questions, how do I know if I'm dating Mr. Right or Mrs. Right? So there is a formula that I've developed called the PAIR formula, P-A-I-R. P, physical attraction. That may not happen immediately. You may not see stars and fireworks right away. It could take 5, 6, 7 dates. But again, good communication builds physical attraction. Number 2, A, admiration. Is there something about the person that you're dating that you admire? Their achievements, their midot, their humility, their kindness, their compassion. You should find something admirable in the person that you're dating. I, emotional intimacy. Do you connect? Do you feel comfortable talking to them about your personal life? Do you solutionize together instead of asking your mother for an answer to a problem? Thank you. That's fine. Do you ask him or her for the solution? Little things, buying him a favorite soda, buying her a favorite chocolate bar. That's intimacy. That's talking to each other, enjoying each other's company, sharing dreams with each other, sharing goals with each other, seeking his or her advice instead of your friends. Now you know you're making it. You're attaching. And lastly, R, respect. There's no place in dating for lack of respect. I handled the case a few years ago where after the engagement, the guy came over for Shabbat and refused to allow her to talk to her mother. You talk to me. Don't look at your mother. Another case, and she broke that engagement up. Another case, when I was on David Lichtenstein, which is a famous podcast called Headlines, and I told him a story that a girl got engaged. He came over for Shabbos in Lakewood. The mother's getting ready to share Devar Torah. Oh, Ma, we heard that one already last year. He tells his mother in front of the girl. And then he had an autistic brother. He wouldn't even allow him to sit at the dining room table on Shabbat. He screamed him at it. Scram, get out of here. He says, this is not a person I want to be married to. So P-A-I-R. I want to thank you so much for coming to tonight's presentation. I'm happy to open up the floor to Q&A. If not, you can, and if you want to do it more privately, then send me a WhatsApp or a text and I'll answer the question. Thank you, Barbara, for doing an outstanding job to host me. And I'm here. Go.
Are you saying that there are bad shadchanim out there? And I'm shocked. And if so, what are the red flags we should look out for if someone's a bad shadchan? And if we're dealing with them, how do we deal with that?
Wow, loaded gun. First of all, let me answer this. I used to be a physician. You don't do this because it pays significant money. I have to give credit to the people out there who put out of their time to be able to try to match people up. However, are they all educated adequately for the job? Probably not. Many people are novice, just attempting to match Joe with Joanne. You know, am I doing a better job at it? Maybe a little bit, because I've mastered the science behind it a little bit. What was your question? How do you know?
Yes, how do you know? Because somebody is a shadchan, they call themselves a shadchan, and you're supposed to bow down to them, and you can't ever say no to them. And
so I would answer you that you need to have a professional relationship with someone who's like me, and you run it by them. Are they doing right by me? Many of the people who come to me, having had bad experiences, now know they have to run every date by me, even if I'm not the shadchan. I want to know what's going on. La'adayom. Yeah. Today, on the way here, a Hasidic guy with a significant porn issue, and I'm trying to clean him up. He says to me, what should I do? I only have an hour and a half. I want to go Dave and Buster's. So okay, take her, make it short and sweet because you guys need a fun date, and then report to me and tell me how it went. But I think that, yeah, you need to check that shadchan with another professional who's more, more academic with it. Next, go.
How much interest do you need on the first date to warrant a second date?
Good question. So the answer to that is neutral or better, it's a go. It's okay. Wasn't wow, it's fine. Do a second. Understand? Neutral or better, it's a go. Unless you just were revolted by the guy. Then it's not go. Neutral or better, proceed to the second date. Next. Anyone else?
Would you say that, like if you're dating somebody, they would have to give you the contact information for their, like the ex-wife, or so you could find out like her perspective?
Easier said than done. No.
You should not ask them.
You're not going to ask the person primarily because that's going to be very insulting to them. That's like very invasive. You're going to have to do that via the Rav, the Rosh Beit Din who signed that get, or a friend of the family. But to ask them directly is pretty harsh. They're not going to want to give that up, and it's like pretty like.
Speak to his ex-wife or what happened or what.
You can't do that. You have to ask a third party. You can't do that. You can't go directly at them. It's like, it's hard to have to deal with such a request.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, maybe, but they may say no. They may not be comfortable with that request. You could try, but you're taking a risk that you may turn that person off.
She's not going to even tell you the truth.
Yeah.
It's just like, because she's going to she might not be able to say anything. She won't be able to satisfy the 7 conditions of the toilet because she might have something at stake.
Right.
Finances for her children, or she has bad feelings about it.
You're better off, I'm sorry, Sarah, you're better off asking your rabbi, your friend, hi, what's your first name? Jenna. I'm calling on behalf of my friend who's looking into a shidduch for Mr. Yossi Greenfield. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened with the divorce? But just to make sure, because I don't want to be burned twice, or she doesn't want to be burned twice. You're better going that road. You get a little bit more neutral information.
Ask a rabbi or something.
Yeah.